I think that every time I see you now, Joe, I'm going to see you with red snot coming out of your nose. Thanks for that. Our next speaker is currently an instructional technology integration coach in Superior, Wisconsin, and was a social studies teacher for 8 years. He loves learning about the amazing history of the Duluth Superior area and is a co-founder of Ed Camp Lake Superior. Now I got to kill a little time and I don't know what to say. Almost ready? With his storied teams, please welcome Tate Haglund-Pagel.
Alrighty, Mike. Well, I think I'll make Mike feel like less of a nerd for talking about Skyrim with the background and some of the things I'll mention tonight. And I just wanted to say I've played Skyrim in the last week. You're right, it's a pretty fun game. So, Tammy mentioned this event to me, and I came up with a couple of ideas of what I could do. I thought of talking about how I learned a lot about teaching from improv work, and also how I learned a lot from training 2 dogs. But a week ago this morning, I had a 9 o'clock meeting with other instructional coaches over in Superior, and I was supposed to have read 2 chapters in praise of American educators. So of course at 8 o'clock I sat down at a coffee shop to read those 2 chapters. And what I have here is a little analogy that ties in with Ignite. That pile of pallets there represents my brain. The things that I had done for fun over the years, the things that I've done for work, just the way I've operated for my whole life, was this pile of pallets. And then I read a sentence, and like a match, that tiny little thing just kicked my brain into full gear. And so for the last week, I've really been stuck on this idea, so it's what I had to talk about tonight. And I will read that quote to you. I'm going to read a little bit more, but as an instructional technology coach, this is actually too much text, but I wanted you to see it. So here we go. A team, by definition, operates differently from a group. Members of a team work interdependently to achieve common goals for which members are mutually accountable. Absent these 3 key elements, a group may be congenial, but its members are not a team. Groups don't become teams simply because someone labels them. The act of meeting together does not define a team. Committees or task forces can serve useful purposes in a school or district, but they are not teams either. And as a teacher, you know, you're on a million committees. Mostly what my job now is meetings. But when I read that, it really struck me. Because I realized that most of my life, I have been operating under these basic things. So, Dufour, pretty smart guy, says we've got to have some common goals and a vision, that our team has to work interdependently, that is, my work depends on the work of other people, and theirs depends on my work, and if I don't do my job or they don't do theirs, we can't make it happen. And last, we're mutually accountable. And I think in education, that's something that we're still struggling with. People have come up with plans before where, hey, we're going to test the kids, and if the kids don't do well enough, we'll fire the principal, but we'll keep the teachers. Or we'll lay off a bunch of teachers, but we'll keep the administration. It's not this idea of, no, we're all in it together, the kids, the teachers, everybody in the school. But I think more importantly, I thought of my little self as a 3-year-old parked in front of the TV, and you're going to see a lot of TV references here real fast. But the first thing that came to mind was the A-team. Of course, because team and A-team, it's 1 letter away. But really because I think this is one of the first examples I had as a little person of a team working in that same manner. So they've got a common goal, usually saving a lady from cocaine smugglers, and a common vision for the way they're going to do it. They're going to come up with some cockamamie plan. Somebody's going to be in a disguise. There's going to be a lot of shooting, but nobody's going to get shot. And it's all going to be wrapped up in 45 minutes. Not only that, they're mutually accountable. Hannibal, right there in the middle, is their leader. But it's not like at 22 minutes when something's gone wrong with the plan, the other guys are like, oh, Hannibal, he's the worst. No, they all pitch in and work together and make it happen. And of course, they work interdependently because each of them has their own strengths, some of those strengths overlap. But again, B.A. Baraka, Mr. T, isn't going to be the one who's always going in and charming people. That's Face's job. So I started to think about this, and I thought, gosh, really, in my professional life and my personal life and in all of the entertainment I've ever been interested in, teams. I'm only going to throw up one more in-depth example, and that is the Ninja Turtles. If you snorted Fun Dip, you're probably around my age. Not that I ever snorted it. But Ninja Turtles came out when I was around 3rd grade. I already had this idea of teams. Of course, all the shows had teams. But I think what was really clever here was Raphael. If you didn't watch this, they are working interdependently with the common goals, mutually accountable. But Raphael is a hothead, and half of the episodes involved him not working interdependently, going off on his own, or not sticking to the common goals. And that usually led to all sorts of problems, and they had to go save him and untie him and punch people. If you're a little bit older, I thought I'd throw this one in too. Dr. Smith, if you ever watched Lost in Space, is a classic example of another team member who was just never sticking with the team and causing those problems. And as I thought about this, my brain just started thinking, okay, pretty much everything I ever do involves this. I'll go one nerdier than Skyrim and say I've played a lot of Dungeons and Dragons in my life. If you don't know, it's like a board game, but you're all kind of on the same team in a fantasy adventure where you've got your strengths and weaknesses. Maybe one person's a big fighter and another person's casting spells. I know it's pretty nerdy. So I thought, hey, and that's related to my favorite book ever from when I was a kid, The Lord of the Rings with Bilbo, and then The Fellowship of the Rings, and all the nerdy sci-fi I've watched as a kid or as an adult. And then I thought, well, wait, all the sitcoms I watched with my mom and that I've watched later in life, and again, I'm still watching today, all of these things tie together that same idea, that you've got a group of people with some big goal, whether that is exploring space or selling paper. They've got their own strengths and weaknesses, these ragtag groups, and they're all mutually accountable. And of course, all of these stories are really about those attempts at doing that and the foibles along the way. By the way, I'm sorry. The last time I played hockey was 3rd grade. I know some of you are sitting there like, yeah, dude, teams, like sports teams, I'm sure they all do that too. So, common goals and vision, working interdependently, and members are mutually accountable. So as I thought about this, and I thought about my own life, I thought, okay, where is this actually coming from? And of course, you don't have to think too hard to go to Jung and, of course, the Myers-Briggs, which we've all taken as part of some sort of psychology class or professional development. We as humans just naturally have strengths. A good example, you'll see a picture of my beautiful wife here in a few minutes. I can handle my own finances. I did fine until we met, but she's really good at it. I haven't opened an envelope in years because mail comes to the house and an adult takes care of it. But if she had to do this, she'd be kind of freaked out. She can act if there's a script, but if you're just up there kind of winging it, not that I'm winging it, she has trouble. And so then I reflected, being a social studies guy, where does that really come from? And I think it comes from a few million years of evolution. I think we as humans, for a few million years, have recognized, I'm not a tiger. If I want to eat dinner tonight, it's probably better if I get together with my friends, just like these folks still do to this day, keeping the tradition alive of working together interdependently, mutually accountable. If we don't kill the thing or if we don't find the berries, we don't eat. And as I said, just the more I think about it, the more it is represented everywhere in my life, whether it's when I worked in a coffee shop, and depending on the schedule, sometimes you have an awesome team where, yeah, our whole vision is the same, or you end up kind of with the wrong person that night who leans against the counter while you do all the work. Or with my friend Meeser, building stuff in my backyard, or again, with my beautiful wife there on the dance floor with me. All of these things really go back to working as a team. So, I'm not just going to tell you the obvious thing, hey, work as a team, like you are programmed to as a human being, because you're Homo sapiens. I thought I'd give a few little pointers to leave you with. First of all, recognize your strengths. And I think this is actually something that educators, we need to get better at. is we have kids focus on their areas of weakness, and I know we need to get them to, get to certain standards, but really we need to recognize, hey, if you are really good at building things, Donatello, you're not going to have to lead the group, because someday you're going to find a Leonardo to do that for you. Likewise, as you realize your own strengths, start to specialize. Get better at it, because other people depend on you being as awesome as possible. Reflect on yourself with the goal in mind. It's important sometimes to go back to that goal and say, really, what are we doing here? And I think in education right now, that's kind of what's happening. We're really starting to dig in and say, we got all these kids in the school. What are we doing here with them? And then last, show appreciation for the other people filling in your gaps, but also don't let problems fester, whether it's a personal relationship or work relationship. If somebody's not doing their job, find the nicest way, get them chocolate or coffee or something, and say, you're not doing your job, help me out. Last thing I want to leave you with is how can this work as a teacher in a classroom? Because really, if you think about it, a lot of times your class is a big, weird team. And as has been touched on already, I think too often we do a bad job of recognizing that it's just not me talking to everyone and these kids have to listen. So, how do you work interdependently with 30 other people? You have to give up some control. You have to allow them to do some of the learning on their own. You have to group them up so they can find their own little strengths. And you have to sit down and be quiet, which I'll do in just a minute. Working on those common goals, you really have to build those relationships and make sure you have a shared culture in a classroom. And I think this is a really hard thing to do because with 30 people, there's bound to be people you don't make a good connection with. So that ties with the top one again. There's probably some other kid in your class that a kid can form a relationship with. Give up some control and work interdependently there. And last, this does tie into the thing I thought about talking for 10 minutes on. I'm probably at about 15 right now. Training a dog. Same thing as with a dog. You give them some basic guidelines. If they step outside of those, remind them. If they do well, reward them. People are the same way. So make sure that when somebody's helping you out, you reward them, say thank you. Again, bring them treats. And if they're not helping you out, say, hey, I need a little more help. Thank you very much.